And where did we come by this notion? Where is it that we get this thought, this belief? Where does it come from? That possessions, that things, that stuff can deliver this? And the answer is, it comes from every sector of the society around us, doesn't it? What does almost every commercial on TV say? Man, if you want to be somebody, you need this. You know, if you only had that kind of hair, and you wore that kind of clothes, and you drove that kind of car, and you drank that kind of beer, and you had this kind of career, and you made this much, but man, if you had that, you would be so happy, right? Do they sow sadness? No. Do they say, go in debt to get our stuff, because if you do, you will be pierced through with many sorrows? No. It's all about, man, if you get a better job. Think about the educational system in our country. Think about the philosophy that has begun to motivate why we should get an education. Do you know why it used to be in olden days? You know why it used to be? So that you could be a person of knowledge and wisdom. So that you could understand the world and how it works, and you could navigate it wisely. And now the prevailing sentiment is, you need a good education so you can get a what? A good job that pays what? Good money. That's right. If you want a good job that pays good money, you need to get an education. Because education has become, for many, a way to chase the American dream and get the buck. Because after all, things deliver a good life. And that's hammered into our heads all the time. It's hard not to believe. It's just hard. Because it seems to be true, because everybody seems to be believing it. There's another reason why. It stifles generosity. And that is selfishness. For the 2 or 3 of you in this room that may still have this problem, may I address you for just a moment? Selfishness. It's this inner drive, this inner tendency to put our interest and our happiness ahead of the interests and happiness of others. And so my interests and my happiness, that's number one, and I'm going to pursue that, and anything else that might get in the way, I'm going to have to say no to. Because really, I got to look out for me. I got to look out for number one. If I don't take care of me, who's gonna? Right? And so we put our interests and our pursuit of happiness above the interests of others and their desire for happiness and a good life. But when I read the words of Jesus, I find that it's supposed to actually be balanced. For instance, maybe you've heard these words before. They're found in Philippians chapter 2 and verse 4. Here it says, each of you should look out not only for your own interests, but also for the interests of others. It doesn't say don't look out after your interests. It says make sure that while you're balancing that by looking out after the interests of others too. You don't sacrifice one over the other. You don't put higher than the other. It's a balance. Do you remember the words that Jesus spoke when somebody said, so Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? Like, answer that one. Jesus went, okay, piece of cake. Remember number one? Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second, Jesus said, I'll even go deeper with my answer than just giving you. And the second is close to it, and that is, what? Love your neighbor, what? As yourself. Did he say love your neighbor, don't love yourself? No. Did he say love yourself more than you love your neighbor? No. Love your neighbor more than love? No. It's an equality. You've got to love yourself in a healthy way. But whatever the healthy way is, you love your neighbor too. See, there's a balance. My interest, my neighbor's interest. Loving myself, loving my neighbor. There needs to be a balance there. Because if we don't love ourselves and take care of ourselves in appropriate ways, there won't be any of ourselves to give in love to our neighbor. See, that's why that's so important. And yet, what we do is we kind of live with this impulse that makes it really hard to love our neighbor, give to our neighbor, to be generous with our stuff, to just bless them and improve them. It's sort of like, It's sort of like this. It's like in God's eternal storage room, he chooses to give me some stuff, represented by gourmet jelly beans. And he says, okay, Dave, I've given you some stuff. But you know what I want you to do? I want you to be a noble person. So here's what I really kind of want. I want you to, it's like, okay, one for me, one for you. You're welcome. Did you take like 10? Oh, okay. Okay. So one for me, one for you. One for me. I don't like you. See, I'm kind of like, I'm looking at it for my interests, okay, with the stuff God gave me, but I'm looking at it after other people's interests too. That's kind of the way it's supposed to be. But what kind of happens along the way is it's like, okay, like, one for me, two for me. Wait, this one. Three for me. All right? You can have one. Okay? There you go. Hey, it's my stuff. I can do what I want with it. Look at me. I gave him one. That's pretty good, isn't it? And then over the first times, it was like this. All right. God goes, let me give you more stuff. Whoa. God's really giving me a lot of stuff. This is great. I got more stuff. You want to well, this is awesome. All right? One for me. More for me. It's like, hey, Mike, how you doing, man? Good. No, Mike, you can have the black one. Okay? Because I really love jelly. You like jelly beans, Joe? Do you? Okay, you can have one. Nope, what? Black one. Because I don't like black. I don't like the black one. I don't like licorice. So I just stay away from. I like the fruity ones. Okay? I remember while my son was into Harry Potter, he had the Harry Potter beans. Some of them were like flavors that humans weren't intended to eat. Nasty. But it's like these are mine. And every once in a while I might share some with you, but I need these. I need because why? Well, because this is what makes me secure. This is what makes me somebody. This is how I can enjoy life. And materialism and selfishness, they kind of get blended together. And the next thing you know, we are not being noble. We are not being generous. And I am going to be doing this the rest of the morning. Well, look, we all struggle with that. It's hard for us to be generous with our jelly beans. Because after all, God dumped so many, and then if we're going to give them away, it's like, is God going to replenish? It used to be that they prayed, Lord, give us this day our daily bread, and they actually had to mean it. That's hard for me to pray because I could go downstairs in my freezer and probably live for a month with what's there. And so we've got materialism and selfishness, that this belief system so pervasive we buy into, and this desire to kind of hoard our jelly beans and just use it for ourselves. And consequently, the tragedy here is that hinders in our quest to be noble, which our DNA says, be a noble person. Bless others, improve the world, be generous, give stuff away. It's hard when that is going on. And I think all of us probably are influenced by materialism because it's everywhere, and all of us struggle with a certain degree of internal selfishness, and so it makes it hard to have this quest and actually become a noble person. And so how do we break free of that? Could I suggest that maybe it might be something just this simple, but just this profound? That the way we break free is basically by inviting Jesus to be an active participant in our lives. It's as simple. Allowing Jesus to play an active role in our life. I know something like this. It's first of all when we open our heart up and say, Jesus, I actually want you to come into